Oklahoma hasn't executed a prisoner since 2015 after a couple of flawed executions put the process on hold. You know that already. The news broke just after 2 o'clock this afternoon that the U.S. Supreme Court overturned the stay of execution for John Grant and Julius Jones. Here to break down these late-breaking details and the legal battle that has ensued is Tulsa County District Attorney Steve Kunzweiler. Steve, I can't thank you enough for coming by in short order today to help us process what's happening here.
Sure.
I want to start with the latest here, of course, which is John Grant, set to be put to death at the top of the hour. It's 4:12. It's scheduled for 4 o'clock, a process that we know takes a moment, but is very formal, and we could only assume that that process is unfolding right now. This execution comes after a stay of execution was granted just yesterday, of course, by the appeals court. That decision the U.S. Supreme Court overturned today, allowing for the state to proceed with this execution for Grant. Your reaction, Steve, to what's unfolded here over the past 24 hours?
As it often is, I go to where the victims are. This is as much a roller coaster ride for them as anybody else, and it takes an awful lot of preparation for them to anticipate that there's going to be these moments that the defense is going to be appealing and trying to do everything they possibly can to forestall what I would say is the inevitable. This defendant, like so many of them, have been through so many different layers of the appeal process. We've got Wade Lay, who's been down there since his murder in 2004 is 17 years ago, and he's one of these folks that we're going to be talking about whose time is up. And so I think about the victims and how it must have been for them last night, and only to today now it's back on. So it's not unusual. I've seen this unfold. It's unusual for a lot of us in the last 5 years because we haven't had an execution, but historically these things happen very frequently and very rapidly leading up to the execution date.
Let's chat about Julius Jones. Walk us through what this means now for him. He has a clemency hearing on Monday. Today's decision by the Supreme Court also allows him to be put to death November 18th. How critical is that hearing for him come Monday?
I would think that's his last gasp and last stop, you know, a horrific murder. Right, and he went through the exact same process that Grant's gone through, and Mr. Lay and the other folks. They've all gone through that, and he's hoping against hope that the governor of state would grant him clemency, and obviously that's not up to the parole board to. They may make recommendations, but the governor doesn't have to follow that. So I'm sure he's anxious and hoping against hope that he might garner that, but the murder is no less horrific nor violent, and those victims deserve finality to their case.
You just touched on this, 5 prisoners, part of this appeal. What does yesterday's ruling mean for the 3 who were not granted a stay of execution? And does today's decision by the Supreme Court change anything for them?
No, each one of those cases is going to be looked at individually. What happens in this case has nothing to do with anybody else's case. They all have their own independent appellate counsel. And I'm confident while they may be monitoring what's going on in this case, at the end of the day, their case stands alone, and they're going to have to make whatever individual requests they're going to make to try and forestall the process. But as it appears now, their execution dates are moving forward.
It's been nearly 7 years now since Oklahoma has put a prisoner to death. Your thoughts on how this process has played out since 2015?
So obviously it was difficult at the time. We had a difficulty with the execution of the last prisoner, and I think it was right. I mean, when you do death penalty cases, it's been referred to as super due process, so it's always good to kind of step back and make sure that how things are being done, whether it's the review of the sentence or the administration of how the death sentence is going to be administered, that should be reviewed. So it didn't bother me that we should have reviewed that process, but ultimately got to get back into the business of upholding Oklahoma law.
All right, Steve, I want to end, if I may, with John Grant. Anything that stands out to you with the events that have quickly unfolded here over the past 24 hours?
Once again, just the way I look at that is for the victims' families, they're finally going to get that final measure of justice that they've been waiting on for so long.
All right, Steve, thank you so much for being here for us. We really appreciate it.